And Peter, can I just ask you a question? Peter, what's 5 minus 1? What's 5 minus 1?
I think it's 4.
4, 3, 2, 1. We're live. Hello, everyone. My name is Max McGillivray, Editor-in-Chief of Beanstalk Global. We're live with our monthly series with the excellent, fantastic PMA in South Africa with Leanne and her great team of experts that we're just going to do a round robin on shortly. Can everyone say a collective hello to the world, please? 1, 2, 3.
Hi, hello.
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 Excellent. Excellent. So just to give a bit of a focus on this, if you've not been involved with this broadcast with Beanstalk and Leanne and the PMA in South Africa before, myself, Leanne and the team are really keen to promote South African produce in 2 ways, both internally within Southern Africa, but also externally to the likes of Europe, to the likes of America, to the likes of Asia and Australasia. We just want to use this platform that Leanne and I have created in a unique manner to do a deep dive into certain product subjects so that we can get a real understanding and find out the stories behind. And this month, we're doing the amazing story about kiwi fruits. So the South African Kiwifruit Industry is small currently. It's about 200 hectares under cultivation. Their production dates back more than 400 years. The fruit is grown in, oh guys, can you help me here with the regions? Even though I've been through South Africa, I'm going to murder the names. Should we guys, where's it mostly grown? Malcolm, you go, as he takes a slurp.
Yep, thanks, Max. We all the way up from the northeast of the country, all the way down into the Western Cape. So you'll have Maguba's Kloof up right northeast, and then the White River region, and then you go down into the Natal Midlands, and then from down there, I'd say Barboom's Kraal, and then a little bit further down into the Cape. So anywhere really along the eastern side of the Drakensberg.
Fantastic. The local industry has operated in the shadows of major fruits for many years, but interest is growing again. And this is driven in part by changing global consumer preferences and the focus on a healthy diet. I remember when I was doing my trips through South Africa, I was learning how grapefruit was slightly falling out of favor within South Africa, whilst the likes of citrus was picking up. And I met a lovely guy yesterday, Lawrence Froome, who runs Berry World in the UK, and he was saying how he loves grapefruit, but because of his prostate problems, he can't eat grapefruit anymore. And so it was that actual market that liked grapefruit, that mature age of people, but they can't eat it anymore. So it's almost as if growers in South Africa have to direct their growing to a certain market. So we're just going to go around all of our experts initially, just to see who we've got. So no particular order. Can you just say who you are and who you're representing? Malcolm, let's start with you as you were first off. Who are you and who are you representing, please?
Thanks, Max. Yeah, so I'm a grower producer up in the White River regions in Eastern Transvaal. So we've got 12 hectares here. We're also planting down in the Natal Midlands at the moment. We've got a nursery, a commercial nursery, licensed nursery. And then we started the Kiwi Gold brand, which is a local market brand, roughly 3 years ago, and that pretty much covers it on my end.
Thank you. Peter, who are you and who are you representing, please?
I'm Max. Okay, so I'm Peter de Jong. I represent Freshworld. Been with the company now since 2017. We're a fruit and fresh produce exporting and marketing company. We've been in the business for about 20 years, and the products that we major on is basically citrus, and now obviously for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been very much focused on the kiwi fruit as well. So we've got about 5 kiwi exporting seasons under the belt from South Africa.
Wow, and you're excited about the future of kiwi fruit?
I'm very excited, I have to say. Lots of opportunities.
Excellent. Louis, over to you, please. Who are you and who are you representing?
Hi Max, my name is Louw. I'm with BFAP, the Bureau for Food and Agricultural Policy. I'm an agriculture economist, and we do work in the fruit industry in South Africa and the rest of Africa.
Excellent. And Louw, we're really looking forward to the presentation that you're about to give us. And but before I forget, if you've got questions of any of our experts, please put them in on the Zoom platform or on Facebook or on LinkedIn, and we'll pick them up and present them to our experts. Athol, who are you, please, and who are you representing?
Yeah, thanks, Max. My name is Athol Curry. I represent the Fruit Farm Group South Africa. We are a multinational company. My main focus is in the KwaZulu-Natal region of South Africa, and our main focus is avocado, but we do pack the majority of the golden kiwi fruit in the KwaZulu-Natal region in one of our packing facilities. So the fit works very well for us between avocado and kiwis. It just lengthens our season.
And are you, I'm slightly leading the witness here, Athol, are you like Peter, are you excited about the future of South African kiwi fruit?
No, absolutely, Max. And I think as more and more growers look for alternatives to products such as sugarcane and timber, kiwi fruit is definitely high on the radar. So yes, very excited about the growth in the industry.
Excellent. Flippy, who are you and who are you representing, please?
Hi, Max. I'm Flippy Viljoen, and I'm representing a company called Top Fruit. Top Fruit manages IP and trademarks in fresh produce in South Africa. I run the Kiwi Fruit division for them. Excellent,
thank you. So just before we go into this deep dive with Louw, with his presentation, I've just got to tell you, I try and get my kids, I've got three kids, an 18-year-old, a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old, and I always try and get them engaged in fresh produce, because there's a problem in the UK that 6 out of 10 kids don't know where fresh produce comes from. And I want all the kids I get aligned to, that I see at my rugby club, to know about fresh produce, and especially fresh produce from South Africa, as we all know it's so beautiful. So I did the stupid thing of giving my kids my credit card and told them to go into our local supermarket so I could get some kiwi fruit, so that I could use it as a bit of a demo with yourselves. So I give those 3 kids that credit card. They know that I need that kiwi fruit for this presentation. I come into the studio this morning, and what have they got me in the way of a kiwi fruit? I've got a cabbage, and they've got to fill themselves up with sweets. But so we just had to go out and get more proper kiwi fruit. But if anyone would like a cabbage, I'm more than happy to chuck it down the line at you, 8,000 miles, and see who can pick it up. So listen to us all there. Never trust a kid with your credit card. I'm going to have to see what my statement says to see what they've actually bought. So Louw, over to you. Everyone else, if you could just turn off your videos and your microphones. So as Louw gets set up, he's going to run through this presentation. I've got a series of questions that I'm going to present. And as I said earlier, if you've got any questions that you'd like to present in, put them on Zoom or send them to WhatsApp or send them on Facebook or LinkedIn. Leanne and I love it when there's an interaction from you all, so we can get the best out of our experts. Louw, over to you, sir. I'll turn off my video.
Great, thanks, Max. I hope everyone can see my screen and hear me clearly. It's great to be with you this afternoon, and I'm quite excited, as the others already said, about kiwis in South Africa. And I'm also looking forward to hear some of the experts that's in the industry. So for myself, I'm mainly looking into this industry from the outside, but I've also worked with a number of some of the niche products, alternative crops in South Africa. And it's just a passion of mine to really talk about kiwis, because I see the potential that it can have on our local economy. But then obviously delivering quality product throughout the world is really an opportunity for us. So I'll just quickly run a few slides just to set the scene, and then obviously we'll continue with some of the discussions with the rest of the team, and basically just talk about why we're saying kiwis have such a great opportunity in South Africa. Now I'll start with just a quick global overview, and the reason we think there's a large opportunity is because there's been strong growth in demand for this product. Obviously, like I'll explain the next slide, mainly due to this healthy eating trend. But if you just look at the graph on the right showing world imports of kiwi fruits for the world in dollar terms in the blue, and then you see quite significant growth. I've given you here in the slides also the 5-year and 10-year growth rates every year. And you're looking at the 10-year growth of around 7% in value terms over 10 years, and then volume slightly lower, about 1.2%. But as you can see in the graph there, the prices have also increased, decently, and we see that the volume has not increased as much as the value, obviously indicating there's some price increases in the market. Now, one thing to note on that graph on the right is that slight drop the last few years, or at least stable, import volumes. And this is quite a surprise to me. I would have expected in 2020 despite COVID and the bottlenecks experienced, that this value would have been higher, similar to citrus. But what we definitely expect is this trend to continue upward into the next few years. But basically, the world market currently about $3.5 billion in 2020, and that's about 1.5 million tons, imported, and some of that's obviously re-exports through Europe. But currently, price CIF unit price of about $2.4 per kg. But especially looking at the European market, there's even been more decent growth in imports going into that market. About 10% increase in value terms, almost 1% volume terms, and then a 9% increase in unit prices. So what's the demand drivers currently happening? I just have a graph here on the right showing the vitamin C content for different crops. Many of them are also alternative or niche crops. And you can see there kiwis very much at the top of the list in terms of the nutrient content for vitamin C per 100 gram serving. And basically, you can see that's much higher than, for instance, some of the citrus. And citrus had a phenomenal year last year. Seemingly, consumers think that there's a lot of vitamin C in your citrus, which is correct. But I would have expected a little bit more, sort of demand growth for kiwis. But basically, the main drivers looking sort of from an economic perspective is obviously this health trend. But COVID-19 has really enhanced this trend even further. People, all the more being sort of seeing information on the benefits of healthy eating. But then there's also some drivers in terms of the retail markets, like many of the listeners would know. Many of the berries and kiwis and others are retailers are driving large promotions to get more consumption and per capita growth. And there's also now in the last 2-3 years, very big drive in terms of e-commerce and rapid food delivery, which we expect will also contribute to more consumption in the future. And of course, the convenience buying, especially now that we hopefully will have more tourism happening in the next few years as we recover from COVID-19. And then the other thing is that we also think that potentially will shift or drive demand higher if there's a quite widespread policy drive to cap unhealthy diets. We see things even here in South Africa with regards to sugar and alcohol taxes, banning of some marketing options or at point of sale, and it's really to encourage healthy living. But more on a macro front, obviously the drivers would be strong per capita income growth in Europe and the US, especially now that there's a lot of money around. And then obviously this continued trend of urbanization will mean that more people will buy food from retailers. And then, like I said, the return from COVID for many tourists. So just looking at the global picture of kiwis, and I sourced this information from various sources that I could find. And although New Zealand's a very big player and people know about New Zealand for their kiwis, China is actually by far the largest producer of kiwis, but mainly producing for their own market and still a net importer. But I also tried to show you all the other sort of big players, obviously New Zealand, Italy, Iran is also a big producer, and then we've got Greece, Chile, and a few others. But the green dots here really shows you the difference in sort of yield per ton or tons per hectare across the world on average. And the line suggests the specific average for the world for all of these countries. And there you can see some of those that are really doing well in terms of a yield perspective. But New Zealand by far, ahead in terms of over 40 tons per hectare yields on a consistent basis. Really shows you that others have catching up to do. And I'm sure we'll discuss this a little bit later as well. But basically for all of these countries, you can see decent growth supplying into the market, which have a large demand. Right, so let's quickly just look at why we're saying South Africa has got a really opportunity to extend, and capture this opportunity to export, kiwi fruits to the rest of the world. Now, we've mentioned that South Africa is still a small player with lots of potential. But when we look at the dynamics sort of on a global scale, we see New Zealand there is the main exporter of the product. About on average, the last 3 years, about 630,000 tons. but they're mainly targeting to a large extent the China and the Japan market. While both of them, China 80% of the total volume and Japan 19%. But then obviously still a decent amount, 35% of volume still going into Europe, mainly through Belgium. And so that's obviously in the counter seasons, same time frame as us, being in the Southern Hemisphere. But then obviously we're also seeing Chile there, also a very big producer, exporting about 177,000 tons, I think last year. And their markets are basically the US 13% and then the EU. Now, the question is, where does that leave South Africa? There, South Africa still a net importer and only exporting about 550 tons annually. Now, compare that with New Zealand and Chile. That's why we're saying what a small player. But what we are saying also is that there's significant scope for expansion, but also obviously we're a little bit higher up in terms of the latitude, and our sort of seasonal timing means that we can really get into the market a little bit ahead of New Zealand, but also our route to market into Europe is much closer than our competitors. Right, so I think this is my second last slide. Let's talk about this seasonality or timing into the market. The graph on the left just shows you the main exporters and throughout the year when the bulk of their product reach the market, the importing market. And as you can see, Italy and EU countries and also Greece coming into the market January, February, starting to taper off in March and April. And that's obviously where the Southern Hemisphere will then come into the market. And like you can see the blue there, where New Zealand just comes into the market, let's say from April all the way through till September, and then tapering off after that. And basically the opportunity that South Africa is having, which I'm showing there in the bottom right, is that we do have that window of coming into the market at the end of Feb and into March, which is definitely ahead of Chile, but also slightly ahead of New Zealand. And that's also at a time where we see quite decent prices in the importing markets. Now this trend of the prices here on the right is just a sort of an average trend. Of course, that will heavily be dependent on quality and what market segment is targeted. But this time of the market, or this part of the market, really has still decent prices for South Africa to target. And especially the other option for South Africa is here really to make sure that we extend the season so that we really can do sort of for longer periods of time import replacement in our own market, which is an additional opportunity. I'm going to end off with this this sort of last slide, and just to show the journey we've been on as South Africa in terms of kiwi production. Now, the first plantings came in the 1960s when some budwood came in from New Zealand, and this was really on a trial basis, and some experimental orchards were established across the country from the Fruit and Fruit Technology Institute in Stellenbosch. And then during the 1980s, that's when sort of commercial planting started to come in. The first industry association back then was formed in KwaZulu-Natal University. And then we see quite a lag up until recently, about 2012, where there's a couple of new varieties coming into the country, and really this renewed emphasis on the opportunities for kiwi fruits coming in. And I'd like to say also a lot of learnings taking place here for how to grow kiwis competitively. And now obviously we're in 2019 where there's a new SA Kiwi that's been established, and really I think the industry is really at a point where we need to synergize and get together to really start to boost volumes and export more kiwis from South Africa. Now obviously there's not a lot of information, and the ones I'm sharing with you is basically all there is to share, but around 300-400 hectares. But like I said, the strategy should be to really drive yield improvement and quality, and then expand our early exports and replace local imports. And looking at the prices over the last few years, it's been quite stable. And I really believe that there's really opportunity for us to target European markets, but also extend opportunities that surround in the other parts of Africa. Max, that's my last slide. Thank you very much.
Louw, well done. That's one of the best presentations I've seen in the broadcast series that we've done, because it was very concise and very to the point, but it's also prompted so many questions. Everyone, can you just turn on your videos? And I've just got a quick housekeeping point. I've just been told off by a contact on WhatsApp. Max, you've not let Leanne speak. What's that about? I should have indicated, apologise. Leanne has got a sore throat, so we're saving her right to the bitter end. And so that's why we didn't allow her to have a word at the beginning. So apologies to Leanne for not mentioning that at the get-go. Just there's so many points there. China, yes, we were aware of the likes of the mass amount of grape production, but I was not aware of the amount of kiwi fruit production that they're producing, and also this element about New Zealand producing the highest yields. Where you've put this case, this very intriguing case, is that if you in South Africa can grow and capture that European market before the likes of the Chileans, you're going to be in a very, very good spot. The South African Kiwifruit industry failed in the 80s and 90s. But just, Louw, and we'll go around everyone. Louw, what's your view over and above your presentation as to why this resurgence is now happening or needs to happen? Is it feasible that it can happen? Louw, over to you.
Well, Max, I'm genuinely optimistic, and I think the difference between what we're having now as opposed to the 1980s and 90s is that we've been building off the base of some other industries where we've actually had a lot of learnings, and also in terms of the expertise and learning to grow some of these more technical crops has been some of the differences. Now, for instance, I've also worked in berries and others. I mean, it takes time, even for the Peruvians and Chileans to really get those yield curves increasing over time. So maybe I'll leave the question specifically of what's happened in the industry to the others, but I'd like to add I've been starting to research on Chinese production, and you'll be scared to just see the amount of productive land area that's been producing under netting, and obviously there's not a lot of information, but the production capacity in China is immense, and obviously serving mainly their own market. It's quite fascinating.
And that Chinese market, I just have to ask, do you think they are looking to just serve their own internal market and not come out on an export basis?
Well, the Chinese, I don't want to talk too much on this, sort of export strategy. They're obviously also supplying throughout the year some strategic markets of their own, but mainly just because of the demand and just the volume of product that goes into that market. They're still sort of not self-sufficient themselves. And also there's still decent prices in that market, and that's why everyone is trying to get market access into the Chinese market.
Excellent. Peter, this resurgence that's now happening, do you think there's some elements to learn from the past, from the 80s and 90s when it in effect failed? You mentioned earlier that you're very positive about the future, but is it positive, or are you going to be hitting speed bumps along the way?
Oh, for sure, Max. I think, we remain very positive and excited, regardless of what happened in the 80s. The reason I'm feeling quite positive is we've had 5 seasons of commercial exports on golden kiwi specifically.
Yeah.
Of course, in the beginning, it was a bit of a struggle. There was a lot of hesitancy from our customer base because we're an unknown source, for golden kiwis especially. But since then, it's really caught on to the rest of our client base and the markets, and the customers are extremely excited about the fact, especially the window that we fall in. And on that basis, I think there's, it's definitely a sustainable industry that we can build for the future. Of course, there's been a lot of growing pains the last few years, but every single year we learn new lessons. We're getting smarter by the year, and that's why I'm feeling very excited. And also think, the South African farmers, we know how to farm fruit. We've done it for ages. So I really think we've got a very good chance of doing a proper job.
Yeah, but I always, Leanne will snigger when I mention this, but I always bring this up because I just find the figure staggering that as a whole, in a normal conventional year, South Africa exports 4.5 million tons of fresh produce and serves an internal market of 3.5 million tons of fresh produce. I look at our UK production and it's nothing in comparison. Athol, what are your views? That we're hearing positive things from the likes of Louw with the potential. If you look at something, say the likes of the blueberry market or the avocado sector, there's always concerns about whether we're just going to overproduce on a global basis. But then the statisticians and the likes of Kantar always state that there's more of a market to be had there. With kiwi fruit, I've picked up in the past that the likes of some of our Australasian relatives find it quite difficult to actually sell kiwi fruit into the European market. Do you think, Athol, it is feasible that South African kiwi, if you all collectively can increase your numbers, that you can sell it and sell it at a good price?
Yeah, Max, I think there's the critical question. I think if we look where the kiwi industries come from, and I'm not professing to be a major expert in the industry, as I mentioned earlier on, my focus is avocados. And if I try and align the two businesses, the avocado industry and the kiwi industry, and look on the two journeys, I think the problem with the early kiwi plantings is it was very fragmented. There weren't big enough volumes. The guys weren't really unified. However, more recently, there seems to be more unification with the industry. There's definitely an appetite. It's not just a sideline anymore. I think a lot of guys planted the green kiwi back in the day as a sideline. You know, they had strong, robust businesses, timber farming, dairy farming, citrus farming, whatever the case may be. But as some of those businesses are starting to erode through to less of a demand for, say, sugar, for example, growers are looking for alternatives. And I think really the formation of the South African Kiwi Growers Association is a big plus, because, you know, in unity there's strength, and the guys need to work together. They need to put a South African product out there. And I think as the industry is maturing, they're going to definitely make headway into the European or whichever markets the guys are going to be targeting. But I think the real trick is to stand together, work together, share the knowledge, be mature enough to talk to each other. And my apologies. And take this very exciting and young industry forward, and learn from more mature industries. The guys are generally willing to share knowledge. It's a South African product, and South African farmers, if they work together, can almost achieve the possible.
Athol, I just had a WhatsApp question in for you. Athol sounds like he's a fantastic avocado grower. Why doesn't he stick to growing avocados? Won't he just find kiwi fruit a distraction? If that's okay to ask you, Athol, that direct question.
Max, it's a good fit for us in KwaZulu-Natal. We traditionally have started harvesting avocados from July through to December, and the South African kiwi industry, particularly in the KwaZulu-Natal industry region, should I say, starts harvesting in February, March. So it's a perfect fit. It's for us to be involved with the golden kiwi business. It gives our packing facility another 2 to 3 months. So instead of packing for 7 months of the year, we can now pack for 10 months of the year. So it just makes economical sense for us.
Yeah, well done. And just another bit of a segue, that same individual, he wants to know what the make of tractor is on your top shelf. If you could tell us later on in the broadcast, that'd be fantastic. All these spotters that we got out there. Flippy, over to you. So we had this sector try to get going in the 80s and 90s. Are you as positive as everyone else that you're all on the route to success with kiwi fruit in South Africa?
Max, certainly I'm as positive, yes. I think if you look at what happened in the 80s, and I think Athol referred to it now, I think the economical will was probably not there, and the management therefore lacked. I think then what happened then, that there weren't good enough yields for the guys to really farm economically. I think if you look at the areas where they planted, I think wind was a big problem, probably late frost was a problem. And therefore sort of interest waned, and there are still a few spots. Now, on our return in 2012, I think we're working with the yellow kiwi fruit, which is a different species, number one. Number two, we are probably going to cover 98% of our orchards will be covered, which will manage wind better, which will manage late frost and some of the other challenges we will have. But I think the biggest change will be there's an economical will make this work this time. I think we need to find alternative products to our bigger industries, and yeah, I think if there's a, like they say, if there's a will, there's a way. Although I think there's definitely a market opportunity. I just think we need to step and forward carefully. Yeah, so we are learning as we go forward, and things must just improve.
Yeah, there's a saying, I'm sure you've all heard of it: profit through sanity, not volume through vanity. I used to be in the grain trade in the UK years ago, and my grain trader director told me that why should people just grow a commodity product just for the volume of it and make little margin, whilst actually if you dedicate yourself to a product that might be hard to grow but there's better margin, but you can concentrate on it, you're going to be in a better place. Malcolm, over to yourself with what we've heard. One question I was keen to ask you actually, Malcolm, was with the presentation that Louw gave us, that is startling, the yield difference of New Zealand in comparison to the other players. Do you think South Africa could reach similar yields ability, such as the Kiwis?
Max, I think we've got a bit of a road to go to get there. And considering we've only been in production for only 4 or 5 years, if that. We sort of had a bit of a false start with rootstock, so there's still quite a long way to go as we're developing. So yeah, it would be great if we could get to that point. But Flippy sort of alluded to it. We've got to check carefully. We've got to be seen as a credible producer to global markets. And I think once we can do that, then as the volumes increase, we're going to find homes. So that's sort of my thought process on it. But okay, we'll see.
And variety-wise, are you growing similar varieties to the likes of the Kiwis? Or have you got your own standalone varieties in South Africa?
Yeah, so the New Zealanders grow a variety called G3, well, that's their goal.
Yeah.
Where South Africa, we've got various different camps. So there's actually quite a few varieties that are available. And what we're sort of seeing with that is certain varieties are better suited to various areas. But yeah, we're not limited to one particular variety.
Yeah, thank you. We did a recent broadcast on a UK perspective with our NFU. So think of your FSA Fruit South Africa, National Farmers Union, and a British Growers Group. And just prior to the pandemic, I can't believe it actually happened, but they had a delegation organised by the UK government, went out to New Zealand to see New Zealand horticulture, both in North Island and South Island, to get an understanding, because there's a view that the climate is semi-similar in some respects to the UK. And after we joined the European Union, whatever it was 30 years ago, we basically kicked out New Zealand, who nearly went bankrupt, but they reinvigorated themselves. And now look at us in the UK with our Brexit scenario and what we've created. We're now going back to New Zealand to find out how to grow. But the reason for bringing that up was that the delegation found that the growers in New Zealand were just beyond a par as to their growing techniques. But I would also say that South Africa is very similar. So just, is there a crossover? Can you get more information from the likes of New Zealand on how to grow to get those sort of yields? Louw, what do you think? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I mean, it depends obviously a lot on climate and the management. I'm thinking of just the economic frame of mind. I mean, there's a lot of technical knowledge, which I think we're starting to really get from these different companies that's bringing in expertise, which is great, that we also see in the blueberry industry. But I mean, it's really difficult to go from 15, 20 tons per hectare to 40 tons per hectare. It takes time to get the knowledge and really get the management right. But I think there's a large opportunity for expansion and learning. And but still, we don't need to get to 40 tons per hectare overnight. I mean, I study many other let's say fruit industries, and if you just look at the average returns, so let's say on a 20 ton per hectare basis, then you're still doing very well, especially if you can bring it into your cropping mix to get a sort of a diversification going and obviously mitigate risk.
Yeah. Flippy, over to you, because I was just to pose the same thing to you. What's the magic dust to get the yield level up in South Africa? And feel free to follow on with your commentary.
Okay. I think it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. I think we want to do the early, we're targeting that early market, the February market. And if you really want to target the February market, you're moving into the warmer climates of South Africa. If you move into the warmer climates, you're probably gonna give yield. You're gonna not be as good as yield. Whereas you move to the cooler areas of South Africa, you're probably going to be slightly later in harvesting, but then your yields will pick up again. So it's a bit of a you need to find that cross. But what we've experienced in the last few years is that early window is really a economical, financial, a good market to be in. So probably you can get away with a 20 and a 25 ton and still have a good net farm income on prices earned, whereas if you go into the later window of our window and you get higher yield, the prices may drop slightly. We don't know yet, but that seems to be the way. So it will be driven by climate and then obviously by some varieties.
Thank you, Peter. What's your views? What are the critical areas for growers to focus on so that they can maximise, especially that window of opportunity that Louw alluded to and Philippe's just engaged with?
From my side, Max, I think first of all, trying to farm in the areas that's slightly earlier. We really want to try and hit that February, March window in the markets. So if that for me is quite an important one. Even saying that, I think there's still opportunity for us to even get our fruit in the market earlier. It's going to be difficult by sea, but we can do it via air freight. Because I do believe there's also opportunity in January. If we look at the situation currently in Italy. Then also some of the other areas, I think we need to focus on varieties that yield us high bricks. Once the leading brands in the world, for instance, the New Zealanders get their fruit in the market, they do arrive with quite high bricks fruit. And then, of course, we need to apply farming practices to ensure we achieve quite large fruit size. That's been a challenge for us as an industry. We've been producing a big percentage of quite small fruit, which is quite difficult to market. And of course, in Kiwis, size matters, so the bigger the fruit, the bigger the higher the price and the better the income.
Yeah, and help me here. It's a bit of a naive question, but with the new trade association that you set up, if you look at the likes of the citrus growers and the amount of money that they're dedicating to R&D, research and development, can the same be presented? Can the same research and development be presented for kiwi fruit in South Africa? Louw?
Yeah, it's a difficult question. I mean, I was formerly at the Western Cape Department of Agriculture, and there's this whole debate of where research and development should be funded and where should it be hosted. So I wouldn't want to go into that. I mean, essentially in South Africa, we left alone to fund our own activities. And that's the challenge with, obviously, if we can also get this sort of growth going, then those activities and additional funding would also be able to assist R&D. It's critical to drive yield improvement, and it takes about a 10-year lag for that to get into place. So the reality is, even though we're not there yet, we should start to introduce and do a lot of these experiments and R&D research to really drive yield improvement in the future.
Yeah, and is there a likelihood that you could get assistance from an international seed house that might have that information from other country territories and bring that intellectual information, that growing know-how into the South African market, Louw? Would that be a possibility, or have you got to work solo within the South African entity?
Yeah, I think probably Flippy would be best to answer this, but basically it depends on, obviously, the IP and the situation for those wanting to invest here. If there's enough scope for, let's say, a nursery to expand production that will make sense to them over the longer term. But there's a number of factors driving whether that takes place, but there's already some movement of these new varieties coming in, and then I also suspect that will continue in the future.
Yeah,
go. May I jump in? Unfortunately, the simple answer to your question is no. There is really no government support. So we will have to drive R&D from the industry itself. Being a young industry, it's difficult to generate money for R&D, which in the end will just will lead that the process will be slow at the start, because we have to generate the money to do the R&D, and then the results will flow into the market. On your second question is, can we copy and paste from the likes of New Zealand or Italy or wherever? From New Zealand, not really. I think Bay of Plenty, if you've been there, it's Kiwifruit heaven. You go there and you visit and you come back and say, I think I must give up. I must rather move to Bay of Plenty and farm kiwis there. It's just the best area. If you go to Italy, maybe it's something different. If you go from the south up Latina and you go further north, Emilia Romagna, there are certainly areas that are more, from a climatic perspective, alike to South Africa. So certainly I think we can learn from the Italians what they do. Challenge really is, if you look at the yields, I mean, New Zealand is basically double what Italy is. And is that because of climate? Is that because of cultural practices? We don't know. But yeah, we have to learn from others if we want to grow this industry faster.
Thank you. And talking about learning from others, I believe, Malcolm, that you're a bit of a variety expert. What's your view? Has that market intelligence, has the variety element, has that got to come from South Africa, or could there be collaboration with the seed house? Or I'll give you a bit of a left field one. There's so many ag funds globally that are looking to get into agriculture and also fresh produce. Could there be a fund that comes in and funds South African kiwi fruit to give it that acceleration? Malcolm, what do you think?
Max, I don't know the answer to that question, but it would be fantastic. Yeah, no, carry on, Philip.
Sorry, the varieties are all proprietary varieties, so they're owned by owners. So the problem is then, if you bring in some money, who gets what? Who gets the largest piece of the cake to do the research? So basically, variety owners need to step up if they want to some R&D done too. Yeah, so it's a difficult one. It's getting funding for R&D is really a challenge.
Well, let me just ask a big question. If there was a sum of money that was presented to the South African kiwi fruit sector to accelerate the growth and development, presumably that would be beneficial to the sector in South Africa, Felipe. Okay, but I suppose the norm is it would come from a trade association that you would be paying quotas or levies on that basis. I don't know if it's ever happened before that you have an external player comes in and invests, and for every carton you then sell, they then take an override. I don't know if that's ever been done or something. Leanne?
I'm going to talk with my gruff voice here, but as you know, a lot of my background is in kiwi fruit as well. But I think globally there are a lot of very good varietals available, and the focus, I believe, for the South African growers is to back some of those varieties that are already in the market, because the kiwi fruit consumption globally is very much brand and varietal driven, and that's where the prices come. And it's led by the global market leader, which is Zespri. So I would say that it's to back varieties that are already in play and are proved to be performing, and that R&D money needs to be spent on finding the right areas, the right production practices to grow those kiwi fruit, optimally in South Africa. Just my 2 cents.
Excellent.
In a gruff, broken voice there.
Well done. Athol, the actual market for South African kiwis, is it just preordained that you're all looking to go export? I gave this figure about 4.5 million tons exported, and you've got this internal market of 3.5 million tons. Rather than having to work really hard for that narrow window of opportunity, isn't that actually a better route to market of your domestic market, or a combination of both? Athol, what do you think?
Look, I think primarily, Max, it's going to be an export-orientated market, and obviously the local market or the domestic market, as it grows, as the crop grows and the volumes grows, there is going to be a certain percentage ending up on our local market. So it hasn't really had much exposure in RSA, the golden kiwi. It's still a relatively new product, and as our consumers are exposed to it, and our bigger retailers take it on board, obviously there is going to be growth on the local market. But I definitely think in the South African context, you want to be playing with forex. You want to be exporting as much of that crop as possible. So if the guys can get those 80-90% export packouts, we're going to see a relatively small percentage ending up on the South African market. I think that's ultimately what's going to happen, especially that if the guys are playing in that window or on the shoulders of the other countries where there is a gap for us to put that product into a market when we're having a fantastic return. It makes a lot of sense to focus more on the export.
Excellent, thank you. And your new trade association, who'd be happy to talk about it so we can find out a little bit more detail about that, please, out of all of you? Any takers? Because if you look at Leanne and I streamed last month on dragon fruit and their new trade association that they've created, and that's looking to do a lot, especially on a marketing perspective. So does there need to be a marketing drive as well to educate the potential customers in the likes of UK and Europe that South African kiwi is coming in, and that there should be a full engagement with it as per your other trade associations? I'm just going to pick on someone. Peter, what do you think, please?
Oh, definitely. Thanks, Max. I think we would definitely need a unified drive, to put the marketing out there and do a big thing about South African kiwis. The fact that some of the previous guys also mentioned, we've got different camps of varieties and variety owners, and we need to find a unified way as Kiwi South Africa to get the name out there, and I think that's a good thing that we've created the Kiwi Growers Association. It's only been instated, I think, for 1.5 years or 2 years now, so still very young. But certainly, we'll certainly gain momentum and take hands and try and have a bit more of a unified approach going forward, just to get the name out there into the market.
Thank you. Because if you look at go Felipe.
I think the focus of the Kiwi Association currently really is not so much market access. I think the opportunities out there. I think what there are two goals, sort of short-term goals. The one is really to set a quality standard for the industry, overriding all the IP and all the varieties. If we can go out there with a decent standard as an industry, I think that needs to be done. And secondly, and refer back to R&D money, government will only take us seriously if we approach government as a unified industry. So by setting up the National Kiwi Growers Association, I think we've got a vehicle to approach government and see perhaps if there are money available for things like R&D. In terms of market access, I think the small volumes we're currently selling can be sold where we do have access. I think Europe can take a whole lot more for us to ship. So really the focus will be to set a quality standard and to approach possible financiers as a unified industry.
Well, thank you. Malcolm, do you think there's going to be cannibalization of some existing cropping for kiwi fruit? Because I know South Africa is a large country. There's only certain parts of it where you can grow this high quality type of product. So as I mentioned earlier about grapefruits being grubbed up to grow more citrus, Malcolm, do you think there's going to be a shift of production away from other products to kiwi fruit? Malcolm, what do you think?
Possibly, Max. I think we're probably sitting in a bit of a wait and see phase at the moment, and it kind of goes back to all the points that were raised earlier. As we're a very young industry, so there's not the funding available at this stage. Growers are getting their hands dirty. We're trying to find ways to bring in R&D ourselves, and who can we lean on, and so I think once we start seeing that traction, I think things will move a little bit quicker than they have. And I think we're going to see some growers out there changing and having a little look on the side. Yeah. But I think if we do get traction, then that certainly will take place.
Yep. To everyone, it sounds like there's great positivity about kiwi fruit in South Africa, as per Louw's great presentation, especially that window of opportunity before the Chilean market comes in. I'm going to give each of you my magic wand, and you're going to use that to sweep aside any blockages or speed bumps to create success 3 years, 5 years, 10 years out for South African kiwi fruit. So with my magic wand, I'm going to give you. What are you going to do with it, Louw? Come on, what do you want to see? What do you want to see happen in South African kiwi fruit over the next 3-5 years, please?
I think we need to be optimistic. I think we need to synergize, get together, and really go for it. I think there's lots of opportunities. Yes, there might be pressure on prices and technical issues and the like. But for me, looking from the outside as an economist, I think it will be a great industry to grow. I think we can go similar to like blueberries and pomegranates, some of the others, really drive the industry. And there's nothing I think that should hold us back. Of course, there'll be risk, but we need to go for it.
Excellent. Peter, what do you think, please?
From my side, like we've mentioned before, very optimistic, Max, about the industry, very excited. What we offer to the customer base is quite innovative. We enable them to have golden kiwi fruit on their shelves 52 weeks of the year, which is a great achievement. If I had a magic wand, I would definitely say if we can push in the next 3 to 5 years to try and farm bigger size fruit, that would be great. And of course, also like Flippy mentioned earlier, if we can get to a point where we've got proper industry standards and we all aligned, that will ensure we've got consistency and good quality product in the market. That will obviously do our South African kiwi reputation very well. But yeah, very optimistic.
Peter, Flippy, some would say, listening to us, that there isn't a system, there isn't a process already in place, but you look at the expertise that you've got in other fruit growing areas, and presumably there's a lot of similarity that you can carry over from other sectors into kiwi fruit. What would you do with this proverbial magic wand, Flippy, to create the success 3 years, 5 years out, please?
Sure. I think there are technical experts, but it is a different commodity. Actinidia chinensis and Actinidia deliciosa, what we've seen reacts differently than apples or stone fruit or other commodities that we know. So unfortunately, there's no quick fix. We're stuck with the different climate zones. I think if I have to address the market, and I think there's a few market people listening, please be patient with us. We see the opportunity. We're on our way, but it's going to take a few years to get there. So I think we should not rush into this. I think there's a huge opportunity. So yeah, bear with us. We are on our way. We're trying to sort ourselves out, and we are. I think we're getting much better at it year on year. And the second thing, probably if I talk to South African growers, I would tell them this is not a quick fix, and this is not an all for everybody. I think certain guys will grow it successfully depending on where they are and who they are. So yeah, for us it's just another 2, 3, 4 years before we're going to take off, I believe.
Excellent. Malcolm?
Yeah, I think if we can get fast forward the orchards on a little bit and get some more uniformity and size, and as an industry we can hit a quality standard across varieties, so that the South African fruit is being received well. And unfortunately, to Flippy and Peter's point, it doesn't happen straight away. So if we could just fast forward to get to that point where we've got the size, we've got the volume, and we're seen as a credible producer with fewer speed bumps, that would be first prize, magic wand for me.
Excellent. Athol?
Max, the magic wand for me would be in a few years' time to have 50, 60 more growers in our region, and obviously a lot more in the other regions. Critical mass, a unified industry, an industry with a vision, and I'm not saying that the guys haven't, but things like transformation has to be taken into account when we speak to government, market access and R&D. So yeah, just general growth in the industry and a unified industry.
I think we mentioned it at the start of the broadcast, and I just got a WhatsApp about it. One thing I've learned over these various broadcasts over the last 18 months is collaboration. The more we can collaborate, the more that we can feed the world, and feed the world with amazing fresh produce from South Africa. So Contact in the UK has just WhatsApped and said, how can we in the UK collaborate with key South African growers to accelerate the growth of South African kiwi fruit, to bring it into the UK, into Europe? Would you all be open to collaboration? Let's have a bit of a free fall. Anyone want to run with that, please?
For sure. That's the short answer. For sure, we're waiting for you. Give him our numbers.
Excellent. So the future looks bright for kiwi fruit in South Africa. It's fascinating, Leanne, how it's such a relatively young industry in comparison to the likes of citrus and avocados and palm fruit that we've covered with yourself and your team previously. It's going to be such an exciting one to watch, kiwi fruit. So after this record, I'm going to put the word out into our network to see who we can get you aligned to on an international basis as to how they can help you with your marketing, because that's obviously going to assist that if you've got guaranteed markets with guaranteed pricing, that's going to help get more interest in country on this area. Leanne, I know we've been saving your voice for the last 4 days for this closing statement from yourself, but what would you like to say, please?
Yeah, I think, South Africa has a gift with the window that they have. It really is a unique positioning, and that window needs to be filled. So all of our growers and our exporters really have a market that's just waiting for them. And I think if I had that magic wand, with my history of being in the kiwi fruit industry for a while as well, I would love to see the industry collaborate very strongly and sort of, if you look at how technology can just skip forward so many ways of doing things, if our industry can sort of find a way to skip forward, to unify, to create a standard around bricks and pressures across all of the varieties. And dare I say it, Max, create a South African brand for kiwi fruit. Yeah. I think that would be a very, very strong positioning for South Africa. And we haven't said that on other fruit products, but for kiwi fruit, I think there could be an opportunity.
That'd be fantastic. So a brand, we'd love to see a brand for South African kiwi fruit to really further accelerate it. So everyone, we're just about to run out of time. I can see what Athel's done. Just to say, really enjoyed this broadcast. We look forward to next month. And Leanne, we hope you feel better with a better throat next month. And Leanne, if you can you just give a shout out to your team, because they do so much behind the scenes for yourself, for the PMA in Southern Africa.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jane. I see Jane and Jennifer on, and Nook is streaming through LinkedIn. She said it was very, very easy. So our team are eventually getting a little bit social media savvy. So thank you, everyone, for your support, and obviously to our amazing members and specialists in the industry for sharing their time and all the prep work for today. That's me. I'm out. Bye, Max.
Okay, and Athel, so we got this this contact that wanted to know the make of the tractor. Can you show us the make of the tractor, please?
It's actually it's a case, which is actually a blue New Holland or Ford. I mean the red one, sorry.
Okay, so that's Athel, that's fantastic. So this individual, this character, he bid on one of our speakers' shirts on the last broadcast, and he's just bid again. Would you be prepared to sell that tractor for $1,000 US if you admit that the Lions rugby team are better than the Springboks?
No, not
I think we're going to have a running theme on this one, Leanne. So someone at some point is going to say, yes, I'll take the money, but no, because you South Africans, you're also passionate and you're also brilliant, such brilliant growers of some of the world's most amazing fresh produce. Everyone, thank you for your time. Let's really watch the kiwi fruit sector and see it grow and accelerate with all of your expertise. Thank you, everyone. Keep safe, and we look forward to the next broadcast next month. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Max.
Bye.